Okay, good morning guys. Springtime in Montana, got the door open, the sun's warming, garage up here, and we're gonna go over some things about these tanks. And some of the questions we're gonna try to answer is, how do we mount the battery? And then how do you keep the nozzles covered to keep bugs and whatever and trash from getting inside your nozzles, especially when they're pointing up. We're also gonna look at what the difference is in the pumping time between a big battery and a smaller battery. Also, I wanna know, will the smaller battery have enough power to pump the whole tank empty? And finally, how do I get it in and out of the pickup? Well, especially when these weigh a significant amount more than just a couple of jerry cans. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, we've got the little battery on trickle charge. This is kind of a lawnmower battery, 435 cranking amps. 350 cold cranking amps. So the trickle charger says it's full. It's been on here for a few days. So let's pop this off and put it inside. Okay, so this is not a heavy battery, but it's still a little awkward for grabbing it and lifting it. So I want to try to make a little handle for it. And I bought a few of these things, and it's going to take at least 3 of these to wrap around it. Also, we're going to try out some Velcro, and this is just double-sided Velcro that we can wrap around it and just make a little carry handle. And I don't know which one works better. Let's look at a couple of them here. Okay, so I linked 3 of these together, and obviously it needs to be secure enough that it'll hold the battery so when you're carrying it doesn't flop over to the side and you drop it. That would be a mess, right? But it needs to be loose enough that you can get your hand underneath it. So okay, well that was a fail, wasn't it? Okay, that feels pretty sturdy. Doesn't feel like it's going to rock off the side, but I guess what we could do is run a strip around like this. Okay, that feels even better. Little plus sign on top, and the Velcro kind of sticks to itself, so let's go drop it in and see if this is going to work. Oh, that's way easier to carry. And the Velcro is thin enough that it, doesn't take up a lot of space like those yellow rubber things we're going to do. That's good. Excellent. As far as mounting the battery to each of these boxes I had to get online. I'll put a link down below if you're interested in these. These are a U1 size for this lawnmower battery. And the lawnmower battery says U1-3. And so that sizing, this box fits perfectly. So what I did was I just took and drilled out holes here, used some heavy duty zip ties, wrapped them around the top just to secure it. That keeps it in place side to side, but then the bottom was kind of flipping out. So, when you lean this backwards, this would kind of swing out like this. So I drilled a couple more holes down here. Let me get out of the light here. And there. And then just ran another zip tie. I was worried this would stick out too far and block the battery from seating, but it actually sucked right up to the inside of the edge of the box there. And then I just wrapped it around here. These are pretty heavy duty zip ties. They're not super big, but they're much bigger than the regular ones. And here's the zip ties we use. These are from Ace Hardware. They're just 24 inch. It doesn't say how wide they are, but it looks like they're a little wider than a 1/4 inch. And 175 pounds strength, so I'm not sure about that. But what I do like about it is their rating is supposed to go down to -40. Now, the installation temperature is -4. So, but once it's installed, supposedly it'll hold it. It'll hold together all the way down to -40. Obviously, plastic gets brittle the colder it gets, so you want to install these when it's warm and where it's warm. Drawback to mounting these back here is I can't just back this up to the cab of my truck because this is in the way. And so I'm going to have to figure out something else. We're going to put these in the truck a little later and see what the best way to mount these in the truck is and where to position them. Now, what do we do with all the cable? So these little keepers here for the lids, of course we didn't use the lids for these boxes, but I just wrapped the cables up and used a little Velcro strap to keep it on there, left enough length for them to come up here and attach to the battery. Okay, and that kind of keeps them out of the way. This one, of course, has a switch on it right here, and the diesel tank, of course, has a switch on the pump itself right down here. But still, we just wrapped these cables up, hung them with Velcro right here on the side, and that leaves us enough room here to attach these to the battery right here. And then when we're done, we can just drop them down there. Now, if I ever wanted to connect it to the battery of the vehicle, I can just unvelcro this and string that out. Okay. Okay, we just hooked up the voltmeter and it's saying 13.16 volts. We're going to pump 5 gallons of gas. We're going to time it. Okay, we know from the last video that I made on this tank that it takes 1 minute 49 seconds for this pump to move 5 gallons of gas. So we're going to open the fill cap here just to give it some vent. Turn the pump on. Starting now. Okay, so that came out to about 1 minute 48 seconds, so about the same. And it dropped the battery voltage from 13.1 to 12.7. Okay, now as far as covering the nozzles, this is just a hydraulic end cap that I had sitting around from my hydraulic builds. And so this seems to work well. My original plan was to just put this right here and have it hang down, but then this kind of is too big and it just kind of slides right off. So I zip tied it back here, which gives this a little bit of a little tension so that you have to kind of overcome that to pull the cap off, okay? But it's nice and clean inside. That'll keep the nozzle clean. And then when it's time to put it on, just pull it over, and that'll keep bugs out or trash out, especially if it's sitting up in a position like that. And then as far as the diesel tank goes, this one's a little bit different. So this is also a hydraulic cap, and I picked these up at Murdoch's. This is kind of a loose fit here. I really wanted green, so it matched the diesel stickers, or even yellow, because tanks are yellow. It's a little bit confusing because the pump, when you're pumping diesel fuel, the handle's green. So I'd probably stick with green. Now this is an internal hydraulic cap, and that's what it looks like there. It was just a tiny bit too big, and so I just kind of ground this down a little bit on the grinding wheel and made a nice fit. So now it takes a little bit of force to get it in, but nothing's gonna, so one-handed even, I can get it in there, but nothing's gonna get inside that, right? So that's gonna be nice and clean. All right, let's just look at the dimensions on this nozzle here. There are better nozzles you can buy and add to this if you want, but if you're looking for a cap that you might have laying around, the inner diameter of this is about 3/4 of an inch, if I remember right. 19.9 millimeters, which is 0.78 inches, which is about 3/4. 25-30 seconds for a fraction if you care about that. And then let's look at the outer diameter here. And that's 24 millimeters roughly, which is 0.94 inches, so about an inch on the outside. 61/64. And this cap does fit just a tiny bit loose. I mean, it spins around easy. It wobbles just a little bit, but with this tension on here, that seems to keep it pressed up nice against the metal there, and I think that's going to make a good protector. Okay, so this is kind of a steep, these ramps are 80 inches long, so between 6 and 7 feet, and they're nice. they're heavy duty, but you know, this tailgate is almost 3 feet tall. And so this is a standard, you know, non-lifted Ram 1500, and that's a 2500 over there with airbags, and it's even taller. So this is kind of steep, you know, pushing this up that had 15 gallons in it, and that had 10 gallons. That one wasn't so bad. This one I couldn't pull up. I had to push it up, like physically push it up the ramp. It was pretty heavy. So going down this might be kind of scary. I might die, so we'll video that for sure, especially when these things are full. So that's going to be fun. But let's look at tying them down real quick. So just like we talked about, this box is in the way. If we put this to the back, it hits here. Now I could probably space it out a little bit by putting a board here, and that would keep this box from hitting that. So in lieu of that, I turn them sideways. These are pretty stable. You know, if I was just going down the road, I might just like strap them lightly, and but we've got a super bad road with a lot of craters in it, and it's a couple miles of really bad road before we even get to the interstate. So I've got to figure something else out here. Now I can't really put this side to the front there because obviously the hose is there. I can reroute the hose. I'm trying to make this easy as possible. Roll it in, park it, and have a little system that I can just tie it down and I can move on. I can't really tie it from that tie down around and back here because it'll want to tip that way, right? And same thing here. We can have a little tie down in the corner there. We can come up and across to this one and down to that one. Problem with that is they can work together then, right? They can fall together. Okay guys, this is what I finally settled on, especially with these battery boxes back here. And these may not be a permanent solution for me. You know, getting them up here, of course they're only like 40 something pounds when you lift them up, so they're nothing to throw in the truck when they don't have anything in them. And so just drop the tailgate, throw them in. But I haven't seen hardly any videos of people actually tying them down in their truck. You know, they'll show them lifting them in and out of the truck with a tractor or whatever, but they're not really showing how they tie them down. So this is how I did it. At the back here, you know, and I didn't really want these banging into the window either. So, you know, tying them up front here, there's some space here, you know, directly up from here, but I still didn't want them banging into the window. So tying them back here against the tailgate, making sure the tailgate's secure, obviously, and then running this strap up over the top, kind of behind everything and back down. And that's not super tight, you know, but it's tight enough. But then the bottoms, you know, if you pull on the bottom, they want to roll out. And I don't know if they'd roll all the way out and fall down on their backs again, you know, if I was braking hard. So I just ran this little cam lock strap around the front and up over the top of this and then over here, and that seems to keep the bottoms in place. So this tank is only half full, so that's only about 100 pounds of fuel, 150 pounds total, and this thing almost pulled me down the ramp. So this, I can't imagine rolling this down when it's 300 something pounds. It's gonna just get away from me and smash into the ground. So I decided to not use these ramps and instead to use my enclosed trailer. And it's showing after 25 gallons, 12.73 volts. Oh man. If you watch my channel, you know I share my fails with you, and this was partially a fail because I didn't see this coming, and some of you might have saw this coming. But basically what happens when, you know, I'm pumping this out because I want to go fill it up full with fresh diesel, and I'm pumping it out and I'm getting down to the last few drops. In fact, the pump's just starting to get high pitched because it's running out. And guess what happens? When you take out all the weight right here and you have all this weight back here, yep, you guessed it, bam, slams on the ground, dumps the battery out. And, you know, I just didn't see that coming. Now, it didn't happen with this one right here, and you can kind of see why. This one definitely has a wider platform, and it has more weight out in the front of the wheels. You know, if you draw a line straight up from the wheels, the battery that's back here, you know, didn't overcome this weight up here. But in this one, it sure did, because the line straight up from this tank sort of goes up, not the middle of the tank, but sort of goes up the middle, you know, toward the middle. This one, a line straight up from the axle, goes right at the back of the tank. So this one's definitely more stable as far as having weight back here. So I may need to rethink this. You know, maybe the smaller battery is a good idea with the straps on it that I can just carry out to, you know, I can hold that in one hand and roll this in the other hand and just hook it up. But this is a little bit of a liability because, you know, if I keep using this on this tank, it might mean that I dump it over because I forget. You know, there's a chance I'll forget and it'll dump over again. And will it hurt anything? Well, it could damage the battery, right? This is a lead acid battery, so it's not an AGM battery. You know, it's not meant to be jostled around so that we could damage the plates inside, and that battery might be hosed. So hopefully you're smarter than me and you saw this coming, but at least maybe you learned from my mistake. But look at this right here. I mean, you set that right there and it starts going over. So that's not going to work at all. Let's put the battery in this one though, and it stays. And I can even try to tip it, you know, try to push it back. And as long as it's on flat ground, you know, it's going to stay. Okay, so the diesel seems to show up a little bit better. You can kind of see the line right there as it's filling. The gas can, you said you could see it? Oh yeah, you can kind of see it right there. Okay, so you can see it foaming right there below the lid. The edge of the fuel is right here. And that was exactly 26 gallons.
Let's see it.
So that's 32 gallons already, and it's got a little ways to go. You can stop there, that's okay. So it looks like, from the line, it looks like it's about right there. So just for perspective, and that's
33 gallons.
33 gallons. Okay. All right, we're gonna start out here because you can kind of get perspective of what we loaded this in. You know, 16-foot enclosed trailer, a ramp, not a big angle, not a high deck height here. So let's turn some lights on here. Let's just turn this other one on too. All right. So, you know, this one we only got 26 gallons in this. You can see how full it is. You know, you can't fill it past, maybe it's 32 gallons with all this. I kind of doubt that, but you can't fill it past that. So unless their pump is just way off, and I kind of doubt it is, this tank, you know, does look smaller than this tank. So they're about the same height as far as, you know, where this height is right here. You know, they're about the same. So, and then this one definitely looks not as deep, and they're about the same width. So that one, you know, they're advertising is 32, but I got 26 gallons in it. We got 33 gallons in this, and probably could have squeezed another gallon in it. So that's kind of cool that held that much. But I'm saying all that to say, you know, my grand ideas of, oh, I'll just put ramps on the back of the pickup tailgate and roll these up and down, you know, and just roll them out. Yeah, no, not, you know, I'm 5'8", I'm a $185. I'm not a super strong guy, but I'm not weak either. So rolling these out down some 7-foot ramps could have been a total disaster. This weighs 225 pounds. Now that's the tank and the calculated, you know, diesel fuel at 7 pounds per gallon. And so this comes out to 245 pounds. You know, the tank's about 45 pounds or so, and about 200 pounds in gasoline at 33 gallons at 6 pounds per gallon. So yeah, you know, I envisioned myself just getting started on the ramp and these just rolling away from me, just like disappearing and hitting and smashing and then busting open. And all right, so that's kind of a nightmare situation. But my biggest worry was, you know, you keep hearing about always put your gas cans, your fuel cans on the ground by the pump so they ground, so there's no static electricity buildup. And so it worried me filling this in the back of the pickup, because I'm not getting in the back of I'm not unloading it from the pickup and then putting it back in the pickup bed. That would just be a total pain in the butt. So if you guys have some ideas about how this should be grounded, or how you could safely ground a gasoline tank, I'm not as worried about the diesel fuel because it's not explosive like gasoline is, but you know, do you have some ideas about how you would ground this and where you'd ground it to make that safe and to minimize the risk of static electricity? Of course, I don't have a plastic bed liner. I have spray-in bed liners on both my trucks, so I don't think that plastic interaction is going to trigger static electricity, but there's other things that can. So that, you know, once I got to think about that got me worried. So I ended up sticking these in the trailer. Now, the other thing about putting them here in the trailer is, the bottom line is, I had these boxes on the back for the battery. I ended up taking them off. And so I'm going to re-engineer those. I've got a couple ideas and of what I'm going to do. I still want to keep the battery boxes on here, but there was no way to put them in here with these wheels because I couldn't put them back to back to try to stabilize each other and then tie them together. I can't put them on the side. You know, I can't put this side of the tank against this wall because the wheels will still roll away. It'll still tip real easy. And I could try tying it down and tying it up here, and it just became a whole lot of drama. And so I'm not sure those boxes on the back, like I had them tied, are going to be worth the extra headache, especially after that one tipped over once I got it empty. You know, I'm not interested in that happening again. So I ended up taking them off and just backing them up here, putting the wheels right up over the E-track so they butt up against the wall. This strap right here holds them down really well, but there's still a tendency for these wheels to roll out and for the tank to just roll out and then fall on its back. And so I ran that strap around the bottom, and that strap just kind of goes around the top here. And it's just kind of, it's not tight or anything. It's just enough to kind of hold it in place. And same thing here, just ran this strap around the bottom, kind of right here between. These things aren't strong enough to hold anything, but there's an indentation. There's a lot of like a out process right here that kind of sticks out, this little bump, and so the strap fits right over the top of that, and that seemed to hold it in pretty well. So we came down our super bumpy road that's full of craters and potholes, and it is really, really bad. And it's about 2 miles of that just nastiness. So, and these stayed in place really well. Now, this ramp, even though it's not as high as a tailgate, this wasn't a gimme rolling these up here. 245 pounds, 225 pounds. It wasn't hard, but it was not easy at all. And so, you know, if you're thinking about, you have grand ideas like I did, I'll just roll it down at about the back of my truck. I don't need to use my tractor. I think there's a reason people are using their tractors or backing their truck up to a ramp, you know, like a ATV ramp that's long and tapers down, or backing your truck up to a bank that you can just roll it off a tailgate. Then it would work. Okay, but rolling it down like 6 foot or 7 foot ramps that are that steep, I'm not interested in that at all. Even rolling this down the ramp with it half full, okay, it only had 15 gallons in it and it holds 33. So that was kind of scary. I rolled it down and it almost got away from me. So just some things to think about. All right, guys, one other thing about these tanks, now that I have them both full of fuel and they're at their, you know, maximum weight that they're going to carry, this Vevor tank has a lot more rolling resistance, and you can hear kind of the plastic on the metal axle. There, you know, it doesn't sound like there's bearings on that at all, and it's definitely harder to pull across uneven ground. This thing, even though I don't, you know, this pump is real slow on this gasoline tank, or this gas combination gas/diesel tank, these wheels have wheel bearings in them, and it is noticeably better, and not just quieter, but it's so much smoother and so much easier to roll around. And this one weighs, you know, that's 225 right now, that's about 245, so this weighs 20 pounds more, and it just rolls so much easier than the Vevor tank. And I think it's just because it has bearings. These tires are rubber. They're a hard rubber compound. You can press into them, your fingernail can dig into them, and that makes rolling smoother. And these are just plastic. Okay, and I mentioned this in one of the other videos, and it was really noticeable now that these tanks are full. I don't have super big hands. I wear a large to an X large, but this handle on this Vevor tank, you know, my hand doesn't really fit around, and it's not comfortable at all when you're tipping the weight back and you're carrying the weight and rolling this around. This one definitely has a smaller handle. It could still be a little bit smaller, but you can see I can pretty much get my hand around it. This is more round, and this has some square edges on it that make it a little more uncomfortable. And this is kind of a small thing, but it just makes rolling this one around much easier as well. Because your hand can actually fit around it, you actually feel like you have better control of this when it's full. So if I had to do it again, I would try to find this tank with a diesel pump on it for my diesel, and then find a tank just like this for the gasoline as well. Okay, so basically I settled on doing this for the diesel tank only. I'm not doing it for the gasoline tank. Okay, so the battery is going to sit on the diesel tank right here, and I just used the 4 thread certs that they already had in the tank and their existing screws, drilled it out, mounted the box there. Of course, this had to mount, the pump had to mount on the front of the box here, and so I just drilled 4 screws to match the holes, put screws in on this side, the screw heads on this side, and then the bolts stick out, or the screw bolts stick out here, and the nuts go on this side here. Okay, so that just keeps them out of the middle, and that allows the battery to go in and out easily. that screwed up a couple things. Okay, so everything you do screws up something else, right? So this hose was too short, that went from here to here. So I just cut a piece. This is 3/4 inner diameter and 1 inch outer diameter, if you're wondering. So I just cut a piece of this off. This is about 12 inches off of my gasoline hose, and stuck it on here. I was going to buy a roll of hose, 3/4 by 1 inch, and it was like $40 or something for 15 feet or something. And I was like, I can just cut a piece off and it's free. All right, so we did that. And then the other thing it screwed up was where this mounts, where this nozzle hangs. I couldn't get the nozzle inside here to hang it on here like I like to hang it like this. Now, of course, you can flip it over. That nozzle end can go over this piece right here, and it can hang on that. I just don't like the way it hangs, so this is how I'm doing it. But I did have to, let's see if I can get the camera down here, extend it out. There's a couple of sleeves there and a little rubber bumper, and I had to use some longer M6 bolts. But I'm pretty happy with it. So we'll just take the battery here. You can drop it in. Okay, and we'll put the positive, negative on, and good. Now we can run the pump. Sweet. Let me just say, anything you see in this video that I'm doing that you want to do, you're assuming your own liability and your own risk doing this, obviously. This is a risk benefit to me with the diesel tank. You know, this is going to be a lot more convenient, I think, with lower risk. But this is my own risk I'm taking, okay? And you're doing the same thing if you're going to copy any of this that you see in this video. I'm not doing this with the gasoline tank, okay? I've decided against this. It's just, I think there's a small chance of a potential spark versus a small chance of potential fumes outside the tank, that there could be a spark and an explosion. Gasoline's explosive, right? That's how it's classified. Diesel is not classified as explosive. It's classified as flammable. Less risk here. And that's my opinion, of course. But as far as the gasoline tank goes, I'm not going to put a battery on it. I'm just going to set the battery outside, away from the tank, you know, use my leads. They're long enough, connect them to the battery, and then pump whatever I'm pumping. Obviously, if I'm pumping something like putting gasoline in a car, that's nice, because then I can just pop the hood and hook them up just like you're supposed to, and then pump. You already have a battery there. This is just for convenience. If I'm pumping gasoline in something that doesn't have a battery, which, you know, there's some things that we don't have batteries on for, and you're pumping gasoline into them. Okay, so that's where that's going to be convenient. So if you stuck with me this long in the video, I'm going to wrap it up. You know, I had a lot of great ideas. I thought, oh, I'll do this with it and I'll do that with it. And so many things didn't work out. So hopefully you learned some things and don't make the same mistakes that I did. And these tanks are great. I'm not as happy with this tank as I am with the gasoline tank over there, just because of the size. It only holds 26 gallons and they advertise 32 gallons. That's a big difference. But at the same time, this is plenty weight to roll around. 26 gallons is plenty weight to roll around. It's heavy. So, and it's almost as heavy as that gasoline tank at 32 gallons over there. So, I'm still happy with this tank, but we're still a little irritated that they advertise such a big difference in capacity. Thanks for watching, and if I make any other crazy mods, there will be an updated video. So be sure to subscribe if this stuff interests you, and please comment below and let me know what you think. All right, see you in the next video.